Dr. Lisa Grant rubbed her tired eyes as she stared at the computer screen. It was 3 in the morning, and she had been working at the Arecibo Deep Space Monitoring Station for 12 hours straight. The coffee had gone cold hours ago, but she kept drinking it anyway. Space was usually quiet at this time of night, with only the normal background noise of the universe filling her headphones. But tonight was different. A strange pattern kept showing up on her screen. At first, she thought it was just a glitch in the computer system. These old machines had problems all the time, but the pattern kept coming back, again and again, like someone was trying to send a message. Lisa leaned forward and adjusted the controls. The signal became clearer. It was not random noise like she usually heard from space. This signal had a structure to it, a pattern that looked almost like mathematics. Her heart started beating faster. She picked up the phone and called Dr. Kevin Miller, who was working in the next building. Kevin was her best friend and the smartest person she knew when it came to space signals. "Kevin, you need to come over. Here right now," she said into the phone. "Lisa, it's 3 in the morning. Can't this wait until tomorrow?" Kevin's voice sounded sleepy and annoyed. "No, it can't wait. I think I found something. Something big." 20 minutes later, Kevin walked into the control room wearing his pajamas and a heavy coat. His hair was messy and he looked like he wanted to go back to bed. "This better be good, Lisa," he said as he sat down next to her. Lisa pointed at the screen. "Look at this pattern. It's been coming in for the last 2 hours. It's not natural. Someone or something is sending this signal." Kevin looked at the screen and frowned. "It's probably just interference from a satellite or maybe a radio station. You know how these things work." But Lisa shook her head. "I already checked all of that. This signal is coming from deep space, Kevin. Really deep space, and look at these numbers." She showed him the mathematical sequence that kept repeating in the signal. Kevin's eyes went wide as he studied the pattern. "This looks like prime numbers," he said slowly, "but they're arranged in a way I've never seen before." "Exactly, and that's not all. Watch this." Lisa played the signal through the computer's speakers. Instead of the usual static noise, they heard a series of tones that seemed to follow a musical pattern. It was beautiful and strange at the same time. Kevin sat back in his chair. "Okay, you have my attention, but even if this is from aliens, we can't understand what they're saying." "That's where you're wrong," Lisa said with a smile. "I think we can decode this." She showed Kevin the quantum decryption program that the government had given them last year. It was supposed to be used for breaking enemy codes, but Lisa thought it might work on alien signals too. They spent the next 4 hours feeding the signal into the computer program. The machine worked slowly, trying millions of different combinations to break the code. Lisa and Kevin took turns napping in their chairs while the computer did its work. When the sun came up, the computer finally made a breakthrough. Words started appearing on the screen, but they were not in English. The computer had translated the signal into a language that looked like no human language they had ever seen. "Now what?" Kevin asked. Lisa smiled again. "Now we use the Universal Translator program." She had downloaded this program from the internet just for fun. It was designed by scientists who thought that any intelligent species would use mathematics and physics in the same way. If aliens tried to communicate, the program might be able to figure out what they were saying. The translator worked for 6 more hours. Finally, words in English started appearing on the screen. Lisa and Kevin could not believe what they were reading. The message was a warning. It came from something called the Zephyrian Collective, a group of 3 star systems located 47 light-years away from Earth. The aliens who sent the message were in terrible danger. According to the signal, a species called the Void Hunters was coming to destroy the Zephyrian worlds. These Void Hunters were like space pirates, but much worse. They traveled from star system to star system, killing everyone they found, and taking everything they could use for their ships. The Zephyrians had tried to fight back, but they were losing badly. Their message was a final cry for help, sent to their old allies in a distant galaxy. They hoped someone would come to save them, but they knew it was probably too late. The most shocking part was at the end of the message. The signal was never supposed to reach Earth. It had been bent by the gravity of a massive star and sent in the wrong direction. The Zephyrians had no idea that humans existed. Their desperate call for help had accidentally found its way to Earth. Lisa and Kevin sat in silence for a long time after reading the message. They both understood what this meant. Somewhere out in space, an entire civilization was about to be destroyed, and by pure chance, Earth was the only planet that knew about it. "What do we do now?" Kevin asked quietly. Lisa looked at the screen again. The signal was still coming in, repeating the same desperate message over and over. She thought about the millions of innocent aliens who were about to die, and the terrible creatures that were coming to kill them. "We tell everyone," she said, finally. "We tell the government, the military, the scientists. We tell the whole world." Kevin nodded slowly. "Do you think anyone will believe us?" Lisa saved the decoded message to her computer and made copies on several backup drives. She knew that what they had discovered would change everything. Humanity was no longer alone in the universe, and they had just learned that space could be a very dangerous place. "They'll have to believe us," she said. "Because if we ignore this message, we'll be letting an entire civilization die when we could have warned someone." As the morning sun filled the control room with golden light, Lisa and Kevin prepared to share their discovery with the world. Neither of them knew that their decision would soon send humanity on its greatest adventure, racing across the galaxy to help strangers they had never met. The signal that was never meant for Earth had found them anyway, and now humanity would have to decide what to do about it. Admiral Jake Morrison sat at his desk at Spacecom headquarters, staring at the printed report that Dr. Lisa Grant had sent him 3 days ago. He had read it at least 20 times, but it still seemed impossible to believe. The report claimed that scientists had received a message from aliens asking for help against space monsters. Morrison had been in the military for 30 years. He had seen many strange things and heard many wild stories. Most of them turned out to be false alarms or mistakes, but this report was different. It came with audio recordings, mathematical proofs, and verification from observatories around the world. His secretary knocked on the door. "Admiral General Patricia Wells is here to see you." General Wells walked into the office carrying a thick folder under her arm. She was one of the smartest military leaders Morrison had ever worked with, but she looked confused and frustrated. "Jake, please tell me this alien message thing is some kind of joke," she said as she sat down across from his desk. Morrison shook his head. "I wish it was, Patricia, but our best scientists have checked it from every angle. The signal is real, and it really is coming from another star system." General Wells opened her folder and spread out several documents. "I've had 3 different teams try to prove this is fake. They all came to the same conclusion. Either someone has created the most elaborate hoax in human history, or we really did intercept a distress call from aliens." "What does the Pentagon think?" "They think we're all losing our minds," Wells replied. Half the Joint Chiefs believe this is a trick by China or Russia. The other half think it's a computer virus designed to make us waste time and money. Morrison stood up and walked to the window. Outside, he could see normal people going about their normal lives. They had no idea that everything was about to change. Patricia, what if it's real? What if there really are aliens out there who need our help? General Wells was quiet for a long moment. Then we have a problem, because there's absolutely nothing we can do about it. Our fastest ships would take 40 years to reach the star system where this signal came from. Even if we left today, we'd arrive just in time to find empty planets and dead aliens. 2 hours later, Morrison and Wells sat in a secure conference room in the White House. President Helen Carter had called an emergency meeting of the Global Defense Council. Around the table sat the leaders of every major space agency and military organization on Earth. Dr. Lisa Grant and Dr. Kevin Miller had been flown to Washington to explain their discovery. Lisa looked nervous as she stood in front of the most powerful people on the planet, but her voice was steady as she spoke. The signal contains detailed information about the aliens who sent it, she explained. They call themselves the Zephyrian Collective. They live on 3 planets in a star system 47 light-years from Earth. They have families, children, art, music, and science, just like we do. Dr. Miller operated the computer that displayed the translated message on the wall screen. According to their transmission, they have about 6 months before the Void Hunters reach their worlds. These Void Hunters are a nomadic species that destroys entire civilizations and uses their resources to build more ships. President Carter leaned forward in her chair. Dr. Grant, are you absolutely certain this message is authentic? Yes, Madam President. We've verified the signal using every method we know. This is not a hoax or a mistake. Somewhere in space, millions of innocent beings are about to die, and by pure accident, we're the only ones who know about it. The room fell silent. Morrison watched as each person around the table struggled with the same impossible situation. Humanity had dreamed of making contact with aliens for generations, but they had never imagined that first contact would be a cry for help that they were powerless to answer. The Secretary of Defense spoke first. Even if this is real, we can't do anything about it. We don't have the technology to travel between stars. We barely have the technology to reach Mars reliably. That's not entirely true, said a new voice from the back of the room. Everyone turned to see Dr. Ryan Torres, the head of the Experimental Propulsion Division. Morrison had worked with Torres before on classified projects. The man was brilliant, but he had a reputation for taking dangerous risks. Dr. Torres, what are you talking about? President Carter asked. Torres walked to the front of the room and connected his laptop to the display system. For the past 5 years, my team has been working on a theoretical faster-than-light drive. We call it the jump drive. It uses controlled space-time distortions to move a ship from one location to another almost instantly. General Wells frowned. Ryan, you told me that project was just mathematical theory. You said it would take decades to build a working prototype. That was before I knew we had a deadline, Torres replied. We've actually built a prototype drive. It's installed on an experimental ship at our secret facility in Nevada. We were planning to test it next year, but... But what? President Carter demanded. Torres looked around the room. But the drive has never been tested. Our computer models say it has a 40% chance of working correctly. There's a 30% chance it will simply fail and leave the ship stranded in space. And there's a 30% chance it will destroy the ship and everyone on board. The room erupted in arguments. Some people said the risk was too great. Others said 40% was better than 0%. Morrison listened to the debate and thought about the desperate aliens who had sent their message into space, hoping someone would hear and help them. Captain Amy Brooks, who had been sitting quietly in the corner, suddenly stood up. She was one of the best pilots in the Space Force, and Morrison had always admired her courage and intelligence. "I'll do it," she said loudly, cutting through the arguments. The room went silent again. President Carter stared at Captain Brooks. "You'll do what, Captain?" "I'll take the experimental ship and go help the Zephyrians. Even if there's only a 40% chance of success, that's better than doing nothing and watching them die." "General," Wells shook her head. "Amy, you're talking about a suicide mission. We're asking you to test an untried technology, travel farther than any human has ever gone, and fight against enemies we know nothing about." Captain Brooks smiled. "General, with respect, we didn't become explorers and soldiers because we wanted safe jobs. We did it because we wanted to make a difference. This is our chance to make the biggest difference in human history." Morrison felt a surge of pride as he watched the young captain volunteer for the most dangerous mission ever attempted. Around the table, he could see other people beginning to nod in agreement. President Carter looked at each person in the room. "This decision will affect all of humanity. If we do this and fail, we might lose some of our best people and our most advanced technology. But if we do nothing, we'll have to live with the knowledge that we could have tried to help and chose not to." She paused for a long moment. "Dr. Torres, how long would it take to prepare your ship for this mission?" 2 weeks, maybe 3 if we work around the clock." "Then we have a decision to make. Do we stay safe on Earth and let the Zephyrians face their fate alone? Or do we take the greatest risk in human history to help people we've never met?" Morrison knew what his answer would be. As he looked around the room, he could see that most of the others had already made the same choice. Humanity was about to attempt something impossible, dangerous, and completely insane. But it was also the right thing to do. Captain Amy Brooks stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, watching her crew make final preparations for the most dangerous journey in human history. The ship was unlike anything that had ever been built before. It combined the best human technology with the experimental jump drive that might either save them or kill them all. 3 weeks had passed since the decision was made in Washington. Those weeks had been a blur of activity as scientists, engineers, and military personnel worked around the clock to prepare the mission. The Defiance and 2 support ships, the UES Guardian and the UES Venture, were loaded with supplies, weapons, and 200 volunteers who knew they might never see Earth again. Lieutenant Colonel Matt Johnson approached Amy's command chair. He was her tactical officer and one of her oldest friends. They had trained together at the Space Force Academy and had flown dozens of missions together. "Captain, all departments report ready for departure," he said formally, but Amy could hear the worry in his voice. "Thank you, Matt. How are the crew holding up?" Matt looked around the bridge at the men and women preparing for launch. "They're scared, but they're ready. Everyone knows what we're trying to do, and everyone believes it's worth the risk." Amy nodded. She was scared, too, but she tried not to show it. As captain, she needed to be strong for her crew. They were depending on her to get them safely to the Zephyrian system and back home again. Commander Sarah Blake, the chief engineer, called from her station near the back of the bridge. "Captain, the jump drive is showing green across all systems. Dr. Torres says we're as ready as we'll ever be." Amy took a deep breath and activated the ship's communication system. "All hands, this is the captain. In 5 minutes, we will attempt the first faster-than-light journey in human history. We don't know exactly what will happen when we activate the jump drive. We might arrive safely at our destination, or we might end up somewhere completely different, or we might not survive the journey at all." She paused and looked out at the stars through the bridge windows. "But I want you all to remember why we're here. Somewhere out there, innocent people are about to die unless someone helps them. We may be the only hope they have. Whatever happens to us, we can be proud that we tried to do the right thing." The countdown began. Amy gripped the arms of her chair as the jump drive powered up. Through the ship's hull, she could hear a low humming sound that grew louder and louder. "Jump drive at full power," Sarah reported. "Initiating space-time distortion. In 3, 2, 1, the universe exploded around them. Amy felt like she was being stretched and compressed at the same time. Colors that had no names flashed before her eyes. For a moment that felt like forever. She wasn't sure if she was alive or dead, real or imaginary. Then everything went back to normal. "Status report," Amy called out as soon as she could speak again. "All systems functional," Sarah replied, but her voice was shaky. "The jump drive worked, Captain. We made it." "Where are we?" Matt asked. Dr. Nick Parker, the mission's navigation officer, was studying his instruments with a look of amazement on his face. "Captain, according to our sensors, we're in the Zephyrian star system. We just traveled 47 light years in less than 10 seconds. Cheers erupted across the bridge, but Amy held up her hand for silence. "That's the good news. What's the bad news?" Dr. Parker's expression became serious. "We're not alone out here, Captain. I'm detecting multiple large ships moving toward the inner planets. Based on their size and configuration, I think we're looking at the Void Hunter fleet." Amy felt her stomach drop. "How many ships?" "At least 50, maybe more. They're much larger than anything we've ever built." Amy activated the communication system again. "Captain Adams, Captain Bell, this is Brooks. Do you copy?" The voices of the other ship captains came through clearly. Captain Lucy Adams commanded. The UES Guardian and Captain Chris Bell led the UES Venture. All 3 ships had made the jump successfully. "We copy, Amy," Captain Adams replied. "Our sensors are showing the same thing as yours. We're outnumbered at least 15 to 1. Amy looked at the tactical display that showed the positions of all the ships in the system. The Void Hunter fleet was arranged in attack formation, approaching the 3 Zephyrian planets like a pack of wolves closing in on their prey. "Matt, can you establish communication with the Zephyrians?" she asked. Lieutenant Colonel Johnson worked at his console for several minutes. "I'm trying, Captain, but I'm not sure they'll be able to understand us. We don't have a translation program for their language." Suddenly, a new voice came through the ship's speakers. It sounded strange and musical, but the words were in English. "Unknown ships, this is Admiral Kestal of the Zephyrian Defense Fleet. Who are you, and why have you come to our system?" Amy was surprised that the aliens could speak English, but she quickly activated her microphone. "Admiral Kestal, this is Captain Amy Brooks of the Earthship UES Defiance. We received your distress signal and came to help you fight the Void Hunters." There was a long pause before Admiral Kestal responded. When the alien spoke again, Amy could hear amazement in the musical voice. "You came from Earth? But that is impossible. Earth is more than 40 light years away. How did you travel such a distance? And why would you come to help us when we have never met your species before?" "We have technology that allows us to travel faster than light," Amy explained. "And we came because your message said you needed help. We couldn't just ignore that." Another pause. "Captain Brooks, I am grateful for your offer of assistance, but you do not understand what you are facing. The Void Hunters have destroyed 17 civilizations. Their ships are enormous and powerful. Your 3 small vessels cannot stand against them." Amy looked at the tactical display again. Admiral Kestal was right. The human ships were tiny compared to the Void Hunter vessels. But Amy remembered something Dr. Torres had told her before they left Earth. "Admiral, the Void Hunters have never fought against human technology before. They don't know our strengths or our tactics. That might give us an advantage. What do you propose?" Admiral Kestal asked. Amy studied the positions of the enemy ships. They were moving in a predictable pattern, focusing their attack on the largest Zephyrian cities. That meant they weren't expecting any surprises. "We need to hit them hard and fast before they realize we're here," Amy said. "Can your ships work together with ours?" "Our remaining ships are at your disposal, Captain Brooks. But I must warn you, most of our fleet has already been destroyed. We have only 12 vessels left, and they are damaged from previous battles." Amy did the math in her head. 15 ships against more than 50. The odds were terrible, but they had faced bad odds before. The key was to be smarter than the enemy, not stronger. "All ships, this is Brooks," she announced on the fleet communication channel. "We're going to try something that's never been done before. We're going to coordinate human and alien technology in a single battle plan," Commander Blake called from her station. "Captain, I'm detecting energy signatures from the Void Hunter ships. They're powering up their weapons. I think they've noticed us." Amy felt a chill run down her spine. The moment of truth had arrived. In the next few minutes, they would either save an entire civilization or die trying. "All ships, battle stations," she commanded. "Let's show these Void Hunters what happens when they mess with our new friends." As the UES Defiance moved into position alongside the Zephyrian ships, Amy thought about Earth and all the people who were counting on them to succeed. The aliens who had sent their desperate message into space were about to learn that sometimes help comes from the most unexpected places. The battle for the Zephyrian worlds was about to begin. The first wave of Void Hunter ships opened fire on the combined human and Zephyrian fleet. Captain Amy Brooks gripped her command chair as massive energy beams lit up the space around them. The enemy weapons were more powerful than anything she had ever seen before. "Evasive maneuvers!" she shouted as a blast of purple energy missed the UES Defiance by only a few hundred meters. Lieutenant Colonel Matt Johnson was working frantically at his tactical station. "Captain, their weapons are adapting to our defensive systems. Every time we use the same evasive pattern twice, they predict where we'll be next." Commander Sarah Blake's voice came through the communication system from the engine room. "The enemy ships are scanning our technology, Captain. They're learning how our systems work and adjusting their attacks accordingly." Amy watched the tactical display as 3 Zephyrian ships were destroyed in the opening minutes of the battle. The Void Hunters were just as dangerous as Admiral Kestal had warned. Their ships were not only huge and powerful, but they were also smart. "Captain Adams, Captain Bell, this isn't working," Amy said into her microphone. "We need a new strategy, and we need it fast." Captain Lucy Adams responded from the UES Guardian. "Amy, I'm seeing the same thing you are. These creatures learn too quickly. Every tactic we use only works once." Captain Chris Bell's voice came from the UES Venture. "My science officer has an idea. The Void Hunters are scanning our technology to understand it, but that means they're also connecting to our computer systems. What if we could use that connection against them?" Amy felt a spark of hope. "What do you mean?" "We could feed them false information. Make them think our ships are weaker than they really are, or that we're planning to attack from one direction when we're really coming from another." Before Amy could respond, a new voice joined the conversation. It was Admiral Kestal from the Zephyrian command ship. Captain Brooks, I have studied these creatures for many cycles. They have a weakness that you might be able to exploit. The Void Hunters use a hive mind to coordinate their attacks. All of their ships are connected to a central command nexus located on their flagship. Amy looked at the tactical display and identified the largest Void Hunter ship. It was at least 10 times bigger than the UES Defiance and was heavily protected by smaller vessels. "What happens if we destroy the command nexus?" she asked. "The individual ships will become confused and disorganized, but the flagship is too well defended. We have tried to reach it many times and failed." Amy studied the enemy formation. Admiral Kestal was right. The flagship was surrounded by layers of protective ships. A direct attack would be suicide. But maybe there was another way. "Sarah, how is our jump drive holding up?" Amy called to the engine room. "It's functioning normally, Captain." "Why do you ask?" Amy had an idea, but it was the most dangerous plan she had ever considered. "Can we use the jump drive as a weapon?" There was a long pause before Sarah responded. "Theoretically, yes. If we destabilized the drive while it was charging, it would create a massive space-time distortion. But, Captain, that would destroy our ship and everyone on board." "Not if we jumped away at the last second," Amy said. "What if we programmed the jump drive to activate twice in quick succession? The first jump would take us right next to the enemy flagship. The second jump would get us away before the drive exploded." Matt looked up from his station with alarm. "Captain, that's incredibly risky. If the timing is off by even a few seconds, we'll be caught in our own explosion." Amy knew he was right, but she also knew they were running out of options. As she watched, 2 more Zephyrian ships were destroyed by the Void Hunters. The alien defenders were fighting bravely, but they were losing badly. "How long would we have between the 2 jumps?" she asked. Sarah's voice was shaky when she replied. "Maybe 10 seconds, 15 at most. Just enough time to target the enemy command center and get clear." Amy made her decision. "All ships, this is Brooks. We're going to attempt a kamikaze run on the Void Hunter flagship. Guardian and Venture, I need you to create a distraction. Draw as many enemy ships away from the flagship as possible." "Amy, there has to be another way," Captain Adams protested. "There isn't time to find another way, Lucy. Those Zephyrian ships are dying, and if we don't act now, we'll all be destroyed anyway." Amy turned to her crew. "I want everyone to know that what we're about to attempt has never been tried before. If anyone wants to transfer to one of the other ships, now is the time." She looked around the bridge. Not one person moved from their station. Lieutenant Emma Stone, who had joined the crew just before departure, spoke for everyone. "Captain, we came out here to save the Zephyrians. If this is what it takes, then this is what we'll do." Amy felt a surge of pride in her crew. "All right then, Sarah, prepare the jump drive for a double sequence. Matt, target the enemy flagship's command center. Everyone else, hold on tight." The UES Defiance began moving toward the enemy formation. Amy watched as the Guardian and Venture launched their own attacks, drawing Void Hunter ships away from the flagship. The plan was working, but Amy knew they would only get one chance. "Jump drive charged and ready," Sarah reported. "Double sequence, programmed and standing by. Initiating first jump in 3, 2, 1, now!" The universe twisted around them again, but this time, Amy was ready for the sensation. When space returned to normal, they were floating directly next to the massive Void Hunter flagship. The East enemy ship was so large that Amy couldn't see its edges through the bridge windows. "Firing all weapons at the command center," Matt announced. The UES Defiance unleashed everything it had. Missiles, energy beams, and projectile weapons all struck the flagship at the same time. Amy could see explosions blossoming across the enemy ship's hull. "Sarah, how long until the second jump?" Amy called. 8 seconds, Captain." Suddenly, the flagship began firing back. Its weapons were so close that they couldn't miss. Amy felt the Defiance shake as enemy fire struck their hull. "Hull breach on deck 4, someone reported. 5 seconds, Sarah called. The Void Hunter flagship was turning toward them, bringing its biggest weapons to bear. Amy could see massive gun barrels swiveling in their direction. 3 seconds. More. Enemy fire struck the Defiance. The lights on the bridge flickered, and Amy could hear alarms throughout the ship. "Jump drive ready! Initiating second jump! Now!" The universe twisted again, and suddenly they were thousands of kilometers away from the Void Hunter flagship. Behind them, the destabilized jump drive created a massive explosion that tore through space-time itself. The flagship was caught in the distortion and began breaking apart. "It worked!" Matt shouted. "The flagship is destroyed!" Amy watched the tactical display as the remaining Void Hunter ships began moving erratically. Without their command nexus, they seemed confused and disorganized. Some ships fled in different directions. Others attacked each other by mistake. Admiral Kestal's voice came through the communication system, and Amy could hear joy in the aliens' musical tones. "Captain Brooks, you have done the impossible. The Void Hunter fleet is in chaos. This is our chance to finish them." The combined human and Zephyrian fleet pressed their attack against the confused enemy ships. Without coordination, the Void Hunters were much easier to defeat. One by one, their vessels were destroyed or driven away. When the battle finally ended, only a handful of Void Hunter ships had escaped. The rest were either destroyed or surrendering to the Allied fleet. Amy slumped back in her command chair, exhausted but victorious. They had done it. Against all odds, they had saved the Zephyrian worlds and proven that humanity would keep its promises to help others. "Captain," Lieutenant Stone said from her station, "we're receiving transmission from all over the Zephyrian system. The civilian populations are thanking us for saving them." Amy smiled as she listened to the grateful voices of millions of aliens whose lives had been spared. It had been the most dangerous mission in human history, but it had also been the most important. The signal that wasn't meant for Earth had changed everything. Humanity had found its place among the stars not as conquerors, but as protectors of those who needed help. 3 days after the battle, Captain Amy Brooks stood in the main conference room of the Zephyrian space station orbiting their homeworld. Through the large windows, she could see the damaged ships from both fleets being repaired by teams of humans and Zephyrians working together. Admiral Kestal sat across from her at a table made from a strange blue metal that seemed to glow with its own light. The Zephyrian leader looked like a cross between an octopus and a dolphin, with smooth gray skin and large, intelligent eyes. When Kestal spoke, the words came through a translation device that made the alien's musical language sound like English. "Captain Brooks, the Zephyrian Council has asked me to offer your species something that we have never offered to any other civilization," the Admiral said. "We would like humanity to join the Zephyrian collective as equal partners." Amy was surprised by the offer. "Admiral, we're honored, but we barely know each other. 3 days ago, we didn't even know your species existed." Kestal's tentacles moved in a pattern that Amy had learned meant amusement. "Captain, you traveled across the galaxy to help people you had never met, knowing that you might die in the attempt. That tells us everything we need to know about humanity's character." Amy thought about the offer. an alliance with the Zephyrians, would give humanity access to advanced technology and knowledge about other civilizations in the galaxy, but it would also mean taking on new responsibilities and facing new dangers. What would this partnership involve? She asked. Shared technology, joint exploration missions, and mutual defense agreements, Kestal explained. We would teach you about faster-than-light travel, energy weapons, and medical treatments that could extend human lifespans by centuries. In return, we would learn from your computer technology, engineering methods, and military tactics. Amy activated her communication device. Admiral Morrison, are you receiving this conversation? The voice of Admiral Jake Morrison came through clearly from Earth. The communication was being transmitted using Zephyrian technology that allowed instant contact across interstellar distances. We're hearing everything, Amy. The President and the Global Defense Council are very interested in Admiral Kestal's offer. Dr. Lisa Grant's voice joined the conversation. She was now working as the official human liaison for alien contact. Captain Brooks, while you've been fighting the Void Hunters, we've been receiving signals from other civilizations across the galaxy. Word of humanity's actions has spread faster than we ever imagined. What kind of signals? Amy asked. Messages of gratitude, requests for help, and offers of friendship. It seems that the galaxy is full of peaceful species who have been terrorized by aggressive civilizations like the Void Hunters. They see humanity as potential protectors. Admiral Morrison's voice became more serious. Amy, we've also detected some hostile signals. Not everyone in the galaxy is happy about humanity's new reputation. Some species see us as a threat that needs to be eliminated before we become too powerful. Amy felt a chill run down her spine. She had hoped that saving the Zephyrians would bring peace, but it seemed like it had actually made humanity new enemies. Commander. Sarah Blake, who had been quietly listening to the conversation, spoke up. Captain, I've been working with the Zephyrian engineers to study the Void Hunter technology we captured. What we've learned is disturbing. Go ahead, Sarah. The Void Hunters weren't just random pirates. They were scouts for something much larger. Based on the data in their computers, there's an entire empire of aggressive species that views this part of the galaxy as territory to be conquered. Admiral Kestal's tentacles moved in the pattern that meant fear and concern. Commander Blake is correct. The Void Hunters were just the beginning. There are dozens of hostile civilizations that work together to destroy peaceful species and take their resources. Amy looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there, entire empires of evil aliens were planning new attacks against innocent civilizations. The thought was overwhelming. How many peaceful species are there in this part of the galaxy? She asked. Hundreds, Kestal replied. Most of them are like us, scientists, artists, and explorers who want to learn and grow in peace. But they are defenseless against the aggressive species that see them as prey. Dr. Lisa Grant's voice came through the communication system again. Captain, we're also receiving reports from our deep space monitoring stations. Ships have been detected at the edge of our solar system. They appear to be scouts from unknown civilizations. Amy realized that humanity was at a crossroads. They could try to hide from the galaxy and hope that the aggressive aliens would leave Earth alone, or they could stand up and fight for all the innocent species that needed protection. Admiral Morrison, what's the decision from Earth? She asked. There was a pause before Morrison replied. The Global Defense Council has voted, Amy. We're going to accept the Zephyrian Alliance and establish the Human Interstellar Defense Corps. Captain, you're being promoted to Admiral and given command of the new organization. Amy was stunned. Sir, I'm not sure I'm qualified for that kind of responsibility. Amy, you saved an entire civilization with 3 ships and 200 volunteers. If that doesn't qualify you to defend the galaxy, I don't know what does. Admiral. Kestal stood up from the table. Admiral Brooks, the Zephyrian Collective is prepared to provide you with ships, weapons, and trained crews. Together we can build a fleet that will protect peaceful civilizations throughout this region of space. Amy thought about all the innocent aliens who were counting on them. Children who wanted to grow up in safety, scientists who wanted to explore the universe, artists who wanted to create beautiful things. All of them were threatened by creatures that saw them as nothing more than resources to be consumed. All right, she said finally, let's build a fleet. Over the next few weeks, Amy worked with both human and Zephyrian engineers to design new types of ships. They combined the best technology from both civilizations to create vessels that were faster, stronger, and smarter than anything that had ever been built before. The first ship in the new fleet was called the UES Humanitarian. It was twice the size of the original Defiance and carried weapons that could destroy Void Hunter ships with a single shot. But more importantly, it also carried medical facilities, scientific laboratories, and diplomatic meeting rooms. The ship was designed not just for fighting, but for helping and protecting others. Captain Lucy Adams was given command of the Humanitarian, while Amy established her headquarters on a new space station built jointly by humans and Zephyrians. The station was located at a strategic point between Earth and the Zephyrian worlds, and it quickly became the center of the growing alliance. As Amy stood on the command deck of the new station, she thought about the signal that had started everything. Dr. Lisa Grant had been right when she said that humanity couldn't ignore a call for help. That decision had led them on the greatest adventure in human history. Lieutenant Colonel Matt Johnson approached Amy's position. He had been promoted to colonel and was now her chief of staff. Admiral, we just received another distress signal, he reported. This one is coming from the Rigel sector. A species called the Aquatic Confederation is under attack by something called the Crystal Empire. Amy smiled. The Crystal Empire sounded like another group of bullies who thought they could pick on peaceful civilizations without consequences. They were about to learn that the galaxy had new protectors. Prepare the fleet, Colonel. It sounds like someone else needs our help. As the Human Interstellar Defense Corps prepared for its next mission, Amy looked out at the stars and felt a sense of purpose that she had never experienced before. Humanity had found its place in the universe not by conquering or destroying, but by standing up for those who couldn't stand up for themselves. The signal that wasn't meant for them had given humanity the greatest gift of all, the chance to make a real difference in the lives of others. And Amy knew that as long as there were innocent people in the galaxy who needed help, humanity would answer their call. The age of human protectors had begun, and the universe would never be the same. 6 months had passed since the battle that saved the Zephyrian worlds. Captain Amy Brooks stood on the observation deck of the new space station that humans and Zephyrians had built together in orbit around the Zephyrian homeworld. Through the large windows, she could see ships from both species working side by side, building a better future. The station was called Unity Base, and it had become the center of a new alliance between Earth and the Zephyrian Collective. Every day, scientists and engineers from both worlds shared their knowledge. The Zephyrians taught humans about faster-than-light travel and energy weapons. In return, humans shared their computer technology and medical knowledge. But Amy knew that their work was far from over. The defeat of the Void Hunters had sent a message across the galaxy. Some civilizations saw humanity as heroes who would help anyone in need. Others saw them as a new threat that needed to be stopped before they became too powerful. "Captain Brooks, we have an incoming transmission," said Lieutenant Commander Rachel Kim, who had joined Amy's crew after the battle. Rachel was one of the best communication officers in the human fleet, and she had learned to speak 3 alien languages in just 6 months. Amy walked to the communication center in the middle of the station. On the main screen, she could see the face of Admiral Jake Morrison, who was still on Earth managing the new Human Interstellar Defense Corps. "Amy, we just received another distress signal," Admiral Morrison said. His face looked tired and worried. "This one is coming from the Antares sector about 80 light-years from Earth." Amy felt her stomach drop. The Antares sector was home to the Crystalline Confederacy, a group of silicon-based life forms who lived on planets with extreme temperatures. They had contacted Earth just 2 weeks ago to thank humanity for saving the Zephyrians. "What's the situation?" Amy asked. "Pirates," Morrison replied. "But not just any pirates. These ones are using Void Hunter technology. It looks like some of the Void Hunters who escaped from your battle have been selling their weapons to criminal groups." Amy clenched her fists. She had hoped that the surviving Void Hunters would just disappear into deep space and never bother anyone again. But it seemed like they had found a new way to cause trouble. "How many ships do they have?" she asked. "At least 20, maybe more. The Crystalline Confederacy doesn't have any military ships. They're a peaceful people who never expected to be attacked. Their planets will fall within days if no one helps them." Amy looked around the communication center. Dr. Kevin Miller was there, working on a new translation device. Commander Sarah Blake was testing improved weapon systems. Lieutenant Colonel Matt Johnson was training Zephyrian pilots how to work with human tactics. Everyone had been so busy building their new alliance that they had almost forgotten about the dangers still lurking in space. "What does the Global Defense Council say?" Amy asked. Morrison's expression became even more serious. "They're divided. Some members think we should focus on protecting Earth and our new alliance with the Zephyrians. They say we can't be the police force for the entire galaxy. And the others? The others remember why we came out here in the first place. We didn't save the Zephyrians because we expected a reward. We did it because it was the right thing to do." Amy nodded. She understood the difficult position that Earth's leaders were in. Humanity had already taken enormous risks to help one alien civilization. Now they were being asked to do it again. And this time they might be facing enemies with technology stolen from the most dangerous species in the galaxy. But Amy also knew that this was exactly the kind of situation that the Human Interstellar Defense Corps had been created to handle. If they ignored the Crystalline Confederacy's call for help, how could they call themselves defenders? "What ships do we have available?" she asked. "The UES Guardian just finished repairs and upgrades. Captain Lucy Adams is ready to take her back into action. The UES Humanitarian is completing its shakedown cruise. And you have the UES Defiance, which has been upgraded with the best technology from both Earth and the Zephyrian Collective." Amy thought for a moment. 3 ships against 20 or more pirate vessels seemed like terrible odds. But she remembered that just 6 months ago, they had faced even worse odds against the Void Hunters and had somehow found a way to win. "What about our Zephyrian allies?" she asked. Before Morrison could answer, Admiral Kestal appeared on the screen next to him. The Zephyrian leader's tentacles moved in the pattern that Amy had learned meant determination and friendship. "Captain Brooks," Kestal said in heavily accented English. "The Zephyrian Defense Fleet will stand with humanity once again. We have 12 ships ready for immediate departure. The debt we owe your species can never be fully repaid, but we will continue to try." Amy smiled. The Zephyrians had become true allies, not just grateful neighbors. Their technology had improved greatly since the battle against the Void Hunters, and their pilots had learned to fight alongside human crews. "There's something else," Morrison said. "We've been monitoring communications across this part of the galaxy. The Crystalline Confederacy isn't the only civilization watching to see what we do. If we help them, it will prove that humanity keeps its promises. But if we fail, or if we don't even try, other species might decide that we're not as reliable as they hoped." Amy understood the larger picture. Humanity's reputation in the galaxy was still being formed. Every decision they made and every action they took would determine how other species saw them for generations to come. "How long before the pirates reach the crystalline homeworld?" she asked. 4 days, maybe 5, Morrison replied. Amy looked out the window at the ships moving between Earth and Zephyrian space. Some of those ships carried families who were visiting each other's worlds for the first time. Others carried students who were learning in alien schools. The friendship between the two species was growing stronger every day. But friendship meant nothing if they couldn't protect each other and other innocent civilizations from those who would do harm. "Send word to Captain Adams and the Guardian." "Crew," Amy said finally. "Tell them to prepare for departure. We leave for the Antares sector in 6 hours." Morrison nodded with approval. "I knew you'd make the right choice." As the communication ended, Amy turned to her crew. They had all heard the conversation, and she could see the determination in their eyes. They knew that they were about to face danger again, but they also knew that somewhere in space, innocent people needed their help. "All right, everyone," Amy said. "Let's get back to work. We have a galaxy to protect."